No one noticed the horse at first, not really. In a crowded auction barn filled with noise, dust, and raised hands, he stood quietly in the far stall, head lowered, one front leg held just a little too carefully off the ground. To most people, he was already invisible. Another injured horse. Another problem no one wanted. Another life about to slip through the cracks. The auctioneer's voice echoed sharply off the metal walls, rattling chains and nerves alike. Prices rose and fell in seconds. Horses were paraded, judged, bought, and led away. But when the injured bay gelding was brought forward, the energy shifted. Conversations dulled. A few people shook their heads. Someone muttered, "That one won't last." This was the moment where stories usually ended badly. The horse flinched as the gate clanged shut behind him. His coat, once sleek from racing, was dulled by sweat and neglect. A faint scar ran along his shoulder, and every step sent a tremor through his frame. He wasn't wild in the way people expected, no rearing, no screaming. His resistance was quieter, deeper. He had learned that fighting only made things worse. Up in the stands, a teenage girl stood frozen. Her name was Lily, and she hadn't planned on bidding on anything that day. She was there because her uncle, Mark, insisted she come along. Mark had once been a respected horse trainer, the kind who could read a horse's fear before it became panic. But years ago, after a catastrophic accident that shattered his knee and his confidence, he'd walked away from the racing world. Now he fixed fences and avoided places like this. Avoided, but didn't forget. "Don't get attached," Mark had warned Lily on the drive over. "This place isn't kind to hearts." Lily nodded back then. But now, as she watched the injured horse shift his weight and blink against the harsh lights, something twisted painfully in her chest. She didn't know why. She just knew she couldn't look away. The auctioneer cleared his throat. Next up. 6-year-old bay gelding. Former racehorse. Minor injury. Sold as is. Minor. Mark's jaw tightened. He knew that word. He'd heard it used to erase whole lives. The bidding started low. Too low. A few hands lifted half-heartedly, more out of habit than interest. Lily glanced at the men around them, buyers calculating costs, risks, resale value. No one looked at the horse's eyes. No one noticed the way his ears flicked toward the crowd, searching for something familiar. Something safe. The price stalled. A murmur rippled through the barn. Someone laughed softly. Another voice said what everyone was thinking, "He's not worth it." Lily's fingers curled into fists. Her heart pounded so loudly she was sure Mark could hear it. Images flooded her mind, things she hadn't lived but somehow felt. Cold trailers. Long nights. Pain ignored because speed mattered more than suffering. The horse stumbled slightly, catching himself before falling. The handler yanked the lead rope to steady him. A sharp intake of breath cut through the crowd. "That leg won't hold," someone whispered. The auctioneer hesitated. His gaze flicked toward the exit gate. Everyone there knew what happened to horses who didn't sell. The word disaster wasn't spoken, but it hovered in the air, heavy and final. Mark leaned closer to Lily. "Don't," he said quietly, sensing the change in her. "You don't know what you're stepping into." Lily swallowed. She did know one thing, though. If she walked away, she'd carry this moment with her forever. The auctioneer lifted his gavel. "Last call." The horse raised his head then. Just slightly. His dark eye caught the light, and for a split second, it felt like he was looking straight at her. Not begging. Remembering. Lily's breath caught. Her mind screamed all the reasons she shouldn't do this. She was too young. Too inexperienced. She didn't have the money. She didn't have a plan. But sometimes, the most important decisions aren't made with plans. They're made in seconds. The gavel started to fall. And that's when Lily raised her hand. The sound that followed wasn't loud, but it was electric. Heads turned. A few people laughed in disbelief. A teenager? For that horse? Mark's heart dropped into his stomach. "Lily," he hissed, panic and something else, hope, tangling in his voice. The auctioneer blinked. "We have a bid." The horse startled at the sudden noise. His ears snapped forward. For the first time since entering the ring, his posture shifted, Not stronger, not healed, but alert. As if some instinct deep inside him had stirred awake. The price ticked up slightly. Another bidder countered, more annoyed than interested. Lily didn't lower her hand. Her arm shook, but she kept it raised. Each second stretched. Each bid felt like a step closer to something irreversible, good or bad. Mark stared at the horse, memories flooding back. He remembered the first horse he'd ever saved. The one everyone else had given up on. The one who had taught him that broken didn't mean finished. The auctioneer looked back and forth. Any more bids? Silence. The gavel slammed down. Sold. A collective exhale swept through the barn. Some people clapped politely. Others shook their heads. A few smiled, sensing a story beginning, even if they didn't believe it would end well. Lily lowered her hand, her entire body trembling now. She hadn't just bought a horse. She'd stepped into a fight she didn't yet understand. The handler led the horse away. As he passed, the gelding paused, just for a heartbeat, and turned his head. His eye met Lily's again. This time, something had changed. It wasn't trust. But it was no longer surrender. And though no one in that barn realized it yet, disaster had just been postponed, and a miracle had quietly begun. The paperwork took longer than the bid itself. Lily stood beside Mark at a scratched metal desk near the back of the barn, the smell of ink and dust hanging thick in the air. Her name looked strange on the purchase form, too official, too permanent. With every signature, the weight of what she'd done settled deeper into her chest. This isn't a movie, Mark said quietly, not unkindly. Horses like this don't come with happy endings just because someone believes. Lily nodded, but her eyes kept drifting toward the stall where the gelding now stood alone. The adrenaline had faded. What remained was reality, and it was intimidating. Up close, the damage was clearer. The horse stood with his injured leg angled protectively inward, muscles tight, breath shallow. His ribs showed faintly beneath his coat. There were old scars too, not just from racing, but from rough handling. The kind of marks people don't put in sale descriptions. Mark exhaled slowly. His worse than they said. Lily's stomach dropped. Can you help him? Mark didn't answer right away. He reached out slowly, palm open, stopping well short of the horse's face. The gelding flinched anyway, jerking his head back, whites of his eyes flashing. That reaction told Mark more than any vet report ever could. He's been hurt by people, Mark said. Not just trained. Hurt. The barn began to empty. Trailers rumbled to life. The crowd that had watched Lily's bold bid moved on, already forgetting the moment. But for Lily, time felt frozen. What happens now? She asked. Mark looked at her, really looked. He saw her fear. He also saw something else. Resolve. We get him home, he said. And then we find out how bad it really is. The trailer ride was quiet. Too quiet. The horse, Lily decided to call him Ash because of the grey dust that clung to his coat, stood rigid in the trailer, every bump making him tense. Lily rode in the truck, staring out the window, replaying the auction again and again. Seconds from disaster. The phrase echoed in her head. She hadn't saved him yet. She'd only delayed the ending. At the ranch, dusk painted the sky in soft oranges and purples. The land was modest, weathered fences, a few empty stalls, grass that needed work. It wasn't a rescue center. It wasn't equipped for miracles. Ash refused to unload at first. Mark didn't force him. He waited. He spoke low and steady, letting silence do the work. Minutes passed. Lily's heart raced with every one of them. Finally, Ash stepped down, his injured leg trembling but holding. That's trust, Mark murmured. Or the beginning of it. Inside the stall, Ash spun suddenly, panic flashing again. Lily froze. She remembered something Mark had once told her, never corner a scared horse. Fear has nowhere to go but out. She backed away. Ash snorted, confused. Slowly, his breathing steadied. That night, Lily couldn't sleep. She lay awake listening for sounds from the barn. Every creak of wood felt like a warning. At dawn, Mark called the vet. The diagnosis was worse than expected. Tendon damage. Chronic inflammation. Signs of stress fractures. And beneath it all, Trauma so deep it showed in Ash's reactions before any scan confirmed it. He might never be rideable, the vet said gently. And recovery will be long. Expensive. Lily swallowed hard. But he can live. The vet paused. If you're careful. If you're patient. And if he doesn't give up. That last part lingered. After the vet left, Mark leaned against the stall door, rubbing his bad knee. Pain flared there every morning now. A reminder of the racehorse he'd once loved and lost. I should have walked away back then, Mark said quietly. I pushed too hard. Thought I could fix everything. Lily looked at Ash, who stood watching them with cautious eyes. Maybe this is different. Mark didn't answer. But later that day, he brought out old supplies he'd packed away years ago, wraps, brushes, halters he'd sworn he'd never use again. The first attempt to clean Ash's leg didn't go well. The moment Lily reached down, Ash exploded backward, nearly slipping. Panic surged. Mark shouted, Lily jumped back, and Ash crashed into the stall wall, eyes wild. It took an hour to calm him. Lily sat outside the stall afterward, shaking. I scared him. No, Mark said firmly. You reminded him. That night, Lily considered giving up. She sat on the fence line, staring at the barn lights, wondering if love was enough, or if she'd made a mistake that would hurt them both. But then she heard it. A soft, uneven whinny. She stood slowly. Approached the stall. Ash stood at the door, not panicked this time. Just present. Lily didn't touch him. She just stood there. Minutes passed. Ash lowered his head. It was a small thing. Almost nothing. But Mark, watching from a distance, felt his chest tighten. Because he recognized it. That wasn't obedience. That was choice. Over the next days, progress came in inches, not miles. Ash tested boundaries. He refused food one morning. Spooked at shadows. Kicked once, out of fear, not anger. Each setback felt like a step backward. Each quiet moment felt fragile, like it could shatter at any second. And then came the call. A man from the auction. I just wanted to check, he said. You know there's a buyer who'll take him off your hands. No questions. You'd get your money back. Maybe more. Lily felt her heart hammer. Disaster was no longer seconds away. It was knocking again. Mark looked at her, waiting. And Ash, standing in the stall behind her, shifted his weight, then took one careful step forward. Toward her. Toward trust. Toward a future no one had promised. The offer stayed in Lily's head long after the phone went silent. You'd get your money back. Maybe more. It sounded practical. Sensible. Exactly what most adults would choose. And that was what scared her the most, because for the first time since the auction, Lily felt how thin the line was between rescue and regret. Ash stood in his stall, head low, breathing slow. The morning light slipped through the boards and settled across his back, highlighting every rise and fall of muscle as if the barn itself were watching him breathe. He looked calmer than he had days ago. Not healed. Not safe. But present. Lily leaned against the stall door, her fingers curled around the wood. They want to buy you, she whispered, unsure why she was talking to him at all. They say it's easier. Ash flicked an ear. That was all. But it was enough to make her chest tighten. Mark joined her a moment later, his steps uneven from the old injury that never truly healed. He'd spent the night awake too, she could see it in his eyes. That buyer, Mark said carefully, won't give him time. He'll be moved again. Pushed again. Will he survive? Lily asked. Mark hesitated. And that hesitation said everything. The decision wasn't forced yet. But pressure had a way of tightening when people smelled weakness. They decided to keep going. Training wasn't the right word for what came next. This was rehabilitation of body and mind. Mark insisted on slow routines. The same path to the paddock. The same calm voice. The same gentle touch, repeated again and again until Ash stopped flinching before contact. Lily learned to read the smallest signs, the tightening of Ash's jaw, the flick of his tail, the subtle way his breathing changed before panic took over. She learned when to step back, and when to stay. But progress is never a straight line. One afternoon, A sudden bang echoed from the road. A truck backfired. Ash reared. The lead rope snapped tight. Pain flashed through his injured leg. He screamed, a raw, broken sound that froze Lily's blood. In a heartbeat, he was down. Dust exploded. Wood cracked. Ash thrashed, terror overriding pain, pain feeding terror. "Let go!" Mark shouted. Lily dropped the rope instantly, stumbling backward as Ash struggled to his feet, limping hard now, eyes wild, foam flecking his lips. The vet came again. This time, the silence was heavier. "His setback weeks," she said. "Maybe more." And mentally, she didn't finish the sentence. That night, Ash refused food. Refused water. He stood in the corner of the stall, turned away from the door, shut down. Lily sat outside until the stars came out. Then she sat some more. She thought about the auction. About how close disaster had been, and how it was creeping back again, slow and patient. Mark lowered himself beside her with a groan. "This is where most people quit," he said. "Not because they don't care, but because caring hurts too much." Lily wiped her eyes. "What if I made it worse?" Mark looked at the barn. At Ash's silhouette in the stall. What if walking away finishes him? The next morning brought a storm. Rain hammered the roof, thunder rolling so close it rattled the walls. Ash panicked almost immediately, pacing the stall, favoring his leg badly now. Lily ran to him, but Mark stopped her. "Not yet." They watched as Ash circled, fear climbing higher with every thunderclap. Then something unexpected happened. Ash stopped. He turned toward the stall door. Toward Lily. His breathing was fast, but his feet were still. He didn't charge. Didn't bolt. He waited. Mark's breath caught. "His asking," he whispered. Lily stepped forward slowly, heart pounding so hard it felt like it might crack her ribs. She didn't reach for Ash. She didn't trap him. She just stood there, open and still. Another thunderclap shook the barn. Ash took a step. Pain flared, Lily could see it, but he came anyway. When his forehead touched her shoulder, Lily forgot how to breathe. She didn't hug him. Didn't move. She just let him be there. For the first time, Ash chose connection over fear. And just like that, something inside him shifted. But healing has a cruel sense of timing. 2 days later, Ash collapsed again. This time, there was no panic. Just exhaustion. The vet's voice was grim. "If he goes down like this again, you might have to make a decision." A decision. The word felt heavy as stone. That evening, Mark pulled out a box Lily had never seen before. Inside were old race photos, trophies, and a cracked leather bridle. "My horse," Mark said softly. "The one I lost." Lily looked at him, realizing this rescue wasn't just about Ash. "You couldn't save him," she said. Mark shook his head. "No. But maybe. I wasn't meant to save him. Maybe I was meant to learn." Outside, Ash shifted in his stall. Not away. Toward them. And Lily realized something terrifying and beautiful at the same time. Ash wasn't just fighting to survive anymore. He was fighting for them. The call came just after midnight. Mark's phone vibrated on the nightstand, sharp and urgent, cutting through the silence like a blade. He didn't need to look at the screen to know what it meant. His knee ached as he swung his legs over the side of the bed, pain flaring in protest. Lily was already awake. She had learned to sleep lightly since Ash arrived, half listening for sounds from the barn, for the rhythm of a life that felt dangerously fragile. "He's down," Mark said after answering. His voice was calm, but his eyes weren't. They ran. Rain from earlier still clung to the ground, turning the yard slick beneath their feet. The barn lights flickered as Mark threw the switch. Inside, Ash lay on his side, chest heaving, legs trembling as he tried, and failed, to push himself up. The smell of sweat and fear filled the air. "It's okay," Lily whispered, dropping to her knees beside him without thinking. "I'm here." Ash's eye rolled toward her, wide and glassy. His breathing was shallow now, uneven. Each breath looked like work. Mark called the vet again, hands steady despite the fear clawing at his chest. He'd made this call before, years ago. The memory slammed into him without mercy. Not again, he thought. I can't do this again. They waited. Minutes stretched into something unbearable. Ash tried to rise once more, muscles bunching, injured leg failing him. He collapsed with a dull thud, a low sound escaping his throat, more resignation than pain. Lily felt tears spill over. Please, she whispered. She didn't know who she was pleading with anymore. The vet arrived fast, too fast for good news. She knelt beside Ash, checking vitals, shining a light into his eyes. Her expression told the story before her words did. He's shutting down, she said quietly. Pain. Exhaustion. Stress. His body's been fighting too long. Mark swallowed hard. He knew what came next. He'd seen this crossroads before, the place where love meets mercy and neither feels right. You have to consider his quality of life, the vet continued gently. If he can't stand safely, keeping him going may only prolong suffering. The words landed heavy. Lily shook her head violently. No. He chose us. He came to me. The vet met her gaze. I know. And that matters. But love doesn't always fix what's broken. Ash stirred at the sound of voices. His head lifted weakly. And then, impossibly, he tried again. He pushed. His legs trembled violently, but this time, he didn't rush. He didn't panic. He leaned, carefully, against the stall wall. Mark's breath caught. The vet froze. Ash stood. Barely. Pain etched every line of his body. But he stood. For Lily. For Mark. For something inside himself that refused to let go. The vet straightened slowly. That changes things, she said. Not the injury, but his will. She adjusted his medication, rewrapped his leg, and left them with strict instructions. Rest. Monitoring. No false hope. After she drove away, the barn felt unbearably quiet. Mark leaned against the wall, sliding down until he sat on the floor. His hands shook now. He didn't bother hiding it. I almost lost him, he said hoarsely. Just like before. Lily sat beside him. But you didn't. Mark closed his eyes. In the dim light, he saw flashes of the past, sirens, shattered dreams, a horse he'd loved and failed. And for the first time in years, the memory didn't crush him. It loosened. Dawn came slowly. Ash remained standing through the night, shifting carefully, refusing to lie down again. Lily stayed with him, her head resting against the stall door, whispering nonsense stories just to keep the sound of her voice in the air. When morning light spilled into the barn, something else arrived with it. A man in a dark truck. The buyer. He didn't bother with pleasantries. I heard he went down, he said. I can take him today. Cash. No more vet bills for you. Mark's jaw tightened. The temptation was real. The fear was real. Lily stepped forward. He's not for sale. The man scoffed. He won't last. Ash shifted behind her. The movement was small, but deliberate. He stayed on his feet. The man glanced once more at the horse, then at Lily's unyielding stance. With a dismissive shake of his head, he turned back to his truck. As the engine faded, Mark let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. That night had been the edge. The cliff. And somehow, Ash had pulled them all back. But healing isn't loud. It's quiet. It's measured in mornings where the horse still stands. In breaths that come easier. In hope that no longer feels reckless. And as Lily brushed Ash later that day, feeling him relax under her hand, she realized something profound. The disaster had been real. The miracle wasn't sudden. It was earned. The first morning Ash lay down again, Lily panicked. She ran to the barn barefoot, heart in her throat, expecting the worst, but when she reached the stall, she froze. Ash was resting on his chest, legs folded neatly beneath him, breathing slow and even. When he heard her, he lifted his head. Calm. Alive. Mark arrived a moment later, stopping short when he saw Lily's face shift from terror to disbelief. That's good, he said softly. That means he trusts the ground again. From that day on, recovery became a series of quiet victories. Ash's leg remained fragile, but the swelling slowly eased. He learned to move carefully, no longer driven by panic. Lily spent hours just being there, reading aloud, brushing gently, letting silence do the work it always had. Trust didn't arrive in a rush. It settled in like sunrise. Weeks passed. The barn changed with them. Laughter returned. Mark's knee still hurt, but he walked more, moved more. Old habits crept back in, not the reckless ones, but the patient ones he'd forgotten he knew. One afternoon, the vet returned with a different tone in her voice. "He'll never race again," she said. "But he could carry a rider. Light work. Maybe more, if you stay careful." Lily's breath caught. "You mean?" "I mean he has a future." The word landed gently, like something sacred. The first time Lily climbed into the saddle, her hands shook. Ash stood perfectly still, his ears flicking back toward her as if checking in. "I've got you," she whispered. He believed her. The walk was slow, uneven, but it was movement forward, and every step felt like a victory. Mark watched from the fence, tears blurring his vision. For the first time in years, he didn't feel like a man running from the past. He felt like someone standing in the present. Word spread. People from the auction began following Ash's story online. Photos, short clips, updates. Comments poured in. Some from skeptics. Many from people who saw themselves in a horse once written off. "Thank you for not giving up. This is why second chances matter." And quietly, without planning it, Lily and Mark had started something bigger. Not a rescue. A reminder. Months later, Lily returned to the auction barn. Not to buy. To speak. She stood where she'd once raised her trembling hand, Ash beside her in the trailer outside, healthy enough now to wait calmly. She told the crowd about fear. About mistakes. About how close disaster really had been. And about a horse who chose to trust when he had every reason not to. When she finished, the room was silent. Then someone clapped. Then another. Back at the ranch that evening, Lily led Ash into the paddock. The sun dipped low, painting the sky in gold. Ash lifted his head, ears forward, eyes bright. He moved, not fast, not wild, but free. Lily rested her hand on his neck, feeling the steady rhythm of his breath. That hand. The one raised in a crowded barn. The one that had changed everything. If you've stayed with this story until now, maybe it's because you've had a moment like that too, a second where fear and hope collided, and you had to choose. If this story moved you, take a moment to like it, share it with someone who believes in second chances, and subscribe for more stories like Ash's. Because sometimes, miracles don't arrive with thunder. Sometimes, they arrive when someone raises their hand and refuses to let go.